Oh, good evening, everyone. Welcome to another Squirrel Cast. I'm your host, the sad man in a bathrobe. Um, Today is episode 11. All of the episodes you can find at diatribesandsquirrels.com, on the YouTube channel The Squirrel Man, on Twitter, Diatribes and SQ1. So today, I can't believe we've done more than 10 episodes of this, and we're going into week 3. Kind of crazy. It's been a great time having you all around for the journey. Ooh, there's my feet. Here, take a snapshot. Sell it online. Just give me, I don't know, 20%. Another great topic from Chris in PA. Facebook personalities. Facebook. Okay. The wonderful thing about this format is that I already have few enough viewers, and even less people will listen if I talk for more than 30 minutes. So the wonderful thing about that is I'm going to try and keep this conversation fairly focused, because I could spend a lot of time talking about how social media is quickening the pace of the collapse of society. There's a lot to be said about those that run social media companies. You know, how essentially the Zuck is a global villain at this point, much like the Musk is kind of making himself out to be. You know, there was always really two directions for these people: help push society into greater enlightenment, or a Bond villain. And I think we see where they've kind of decided to push themselves. What's a little bit terrifying is how, and I'll just say this, I'm kind of reminded, I read Atlas Shrugged by Ayn Rand, and I'm a little bit worried that in that book, basically a group of elite intellects, inventors, entrepreneurs, make themselves a small island of utopia while the rest of society collapses around them, because it's become bloated, because it's become bureaucratic. People are not held accountable for themselves. And it led to the philosophy of objectivism. And I remember it took me like a month to read through 700 pages, and like 2 years to read through the last 80, where it was just the longest. It was a monologue on the philosophy, and that was a tough read. I guess I'm just not that bright. I guess I wouldn't end up in that utopia. The secret thing about a cynical person is that there's an optimist buried underneath it. That's just been disappointed so many times. That's a discussion for another day. But Facebook, I'm young enough to be fairly plugged into Facebook, not all day, every day. But I'll comment on friend statuses. I'll like certain things. I'll make my own posts. Usually my posts will complain about something or try to make some dumb joke. Or post this podcast, But I'm old enough that I don't leave my Facebook particularly open or public. I'm old enough that I'll only really accept friend requests from people that I actually know. I'm old enough that I still prefer to talk on the phone than to text. And even more than talk on the phone, I prefer to meet people in person and talk to them face to face. I lived through the time where social media was introduced. I was in my 20s. So I think maybe my generation has a unique perspective on this. We didn't grow up with it, and we're not completely alien to it, in that it came too far into our lives for us to really adapt backwards and get involved with it. More my parents' generation, even, people that were kind of, I have friends that are older than me that, are pretty plugged into Facebook, but, as you get older than me, the curve of people that kind of are plugged into social media really drops off. But it is true that social media tends to bring out perhaps not the best aspects of people. People that either pretend that everything is great in their lives and they post about, it's really strange because you hear about people that are posting family pictures and family activities or couples activities and couples pictures, couples vacations, and it really lulls you into this false sense of, oh my gosh, everybody else is living their best life. Like, why am I here in my bathrobe talking to 10 people on a Sunday evening? But it's just not reality. And that's why I say perhaps it hastens the collapse of society, if I can get those words out. Because it masks the reality of day to day. I also think it lends a certain kind of person a certain amount of freedom and lack of accountability that is dangerous, because people can become immensely cruel and think that this is the kind of guy that would, say something horrible, racist, homophobic, chauvinist, sexist, whatever the case may be. And in the old days, they would have gotten punched in the fucking face. But under the guise of social media, nothing really happens to them. And that's... Why can't... let's think of a solution here. Is there, aside from having like the Zuck or the Musk, ban them from social media, or counting on some sort of watchdog that we know doesn't exist to kind of police behavior a little bit better? What could we do? I don't know. These are big philosophical questions, and I am not a smart man. To hold somebody accountable for their behavior. I think I got off track there. People that... I can't figure that one out. I'll wait for comments on that one, on how we would make it so that being on social media would make you as accountable as having a face-to-face conversation. As for the people that, pretend that everything is good, life is great, how many times have we all heard the story of, they're posting all these pictures, these couples, blah, 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 and then they break up like a week later, and you're left dumbfounded going, I thought everything was amazing. It just goes to show that really being connected to people, social media is not connection. It's a proxy to connection. And when I talk about connection, I mean really knowing a person, seeing their mannerisms, hearing their voice. That's connection. It's dangerous because it can lead people to think that somebody's all right when they really, really aren't. It's dangerous because it gives bad people or people with cruel tendencies an avenue to hurt those that may be vulnerable and not be held to account for it. It's dangerous because it's another mask. And that is a very dangerous thing in a society that just puts up masks, right? I mean, I could have done this podcast without a crappy laptop camera. I could have done this podcast by voice. I could have even taken it one step back from that and just typed it out and been a lot more coherent, a lot less fumbled words, a lot less you-knows and ums and uhs. I've always liked watching the podcasts that are filmed more because you really get to see how people react. It's it's not the same as being in the same room as them, but at least it's something. It's a voice, it's a face, it's something. And don't forget that, and I'm guilty of this, social media can make you look very stupid as well. If you're going to post opinions, if I'm going to post opinions, I better, if it's not blatant comedy, then I better know what I'm talking about. And too many people don't. There's a certain aspect of it as well that, if you're going to post things, try. And I do mean try to use proper spelling and proper grammar. Because to read through a post that looks like it was written by a 6-year-old who hadn't done well on his spelling and reading tests is very infuriating. Keep your kids off of social media, I would say. I'm trying to keep mine own off the social medias for the foreseeable future. There's obviously going to be a breaking point where all the friends at school will have it, and it'll be difficult to hold back the flood, but as long as possible, because it's not connection. And I expect there will be some feedback on that to say that maybe it's the new form of connection, maybe I'm being an old fart in a bathrobe, but I was having this conversation with a colleague of mine at work who said, please don't call, text. And I'd never called the person. It was just, we were just getting to know each other, and they said, please, if you have to communicate with me, I would prefer that you text. It's very rare that I like to take phone calls. And I found that strange and sad because, again, it's a loss of connection. It's a loss of connection. I mean, we could take the next hour to speak about, social media, how it's fed into, the Instagram lifestyle, the rise of people making money for ostensibly no talent. They call content creators. Wait a minute, I'm a content creator. Yeah, but 3 people are going to see this, so it's okay. It's not exactly like I'm making money, and I definitely don't have any talent. But people making tens of thousands of dollars a month they're not making music, they're not acting. It's essentially just pictures of themselves. The rise of certain celebrities. I mean, these are people that don't know what they're doing to themselves and to others. Am I against all of it? No, I'm not. People should be allowed to express themselves the way they want. So let's not sit here and pretend I'm not sounding like an old fart right now, because I am. But I think those people need to be very, very aware of the potential harm they're doing to themselves, the world that they're opening themselves up to in terms of the cruelty of other people online, and the impact that they may have on more vulnerable people. Unintentionally, I agree, but the impact of their presence on those more impressionable minds. I think there's a danger to that needs some sort of oversight that doesn't exist yet, because we know this, we know I think it was, what was it? A couple years ago, OnlyFans wanted to remove all the sexual content off of their platform. And I remember seeing this hilarious video, with the pretend CEO of OnlyFans. How much of our content is actually pornography? And he goes, 90? 98%? Like, of course these guys are not going to do anything. If the 9.8 out of 10 or 98 out of 100 creators are creating sexual content, and that's what the subscribers are coming for, they're not exactly going to start banning it. I mean, that would be commercial suicide for them. What are you going to do? I mean, it's going to be there. A big onus, honestly, and this is where old farts like me with kids are going to have to navigate more intelligently, is to teach our children about the mask that is social media, and how they need to be careful, and how to navigate it, and how life is not always as it seems on those platforms. I mean, let's take it back for a second. Let's admit, I wish I had 500,000 followers and I was making $50K a month, just sitting here in my bathrobe doing 15-minute, 20-minute podcasts on Much Ado About Nothing. But, would certainly get me a second more fun car, maybe upgrade the house a little bit. But I'm not going to count on it. And even if it were to come, say, I think there would be some prudence to maybe treating it like a windfall and putting the money away, saving it, investing it. Man, this got really off topic. I'm so sorry, everybody. Maybe I should start having guests, because God knows somebody needs to keep me on point for a few minutes. Social media has been a great way to keep a proxy connection with those that would have perhaps fallen to the wayside of life. Of your life, not their own life, but your life. We're able to stay connected with people that perhaps once we've moved, we can stay in touch. It's easier, but it is a proxy. Let's not mistake nor move to replace real connection with real people in real time. And be yourself when you post. Act like you would if you were having a face-to-face. Because God knows it would be awesome to invent a computer that had a fist at the top, that when you were a jerk and got called out for it, the computer would punch you. But I don't think that's today. Anywho, that's it. Have a great evening, everybody.